You know that feeling. And when you've done everything right, yet your hand hovers over the keyboard, completely unable to move. Marcus had spent 60 hours researching this stock. The fundamentals were solid, the timing looked perfect, yet paralysis owned him completely. The stock was down 18%, a textbook buying opportunity by every metric he trusted, and yet fear rewrote every calculation. Being wrong felt more dangerous than losing money. That distinction, buried deep in his psychology, was the real enemy Marcus hadn't yet named. Every minute he waited, the psychological cost compounded. Inaction wasn't safety. It was a different, quieter kind of catastrophic loss. Marcus finally clicked sell, not from wisdom, but from exhaustion, locking in a loss that felt like a verdict against his entire identity. The worst trades aren't the ones that lose money. They're the ones that teach you nothing because the pain makes you look away. That evening, staring at a realized loss on his screen, Marcus felt something crack open. Not defeat, but the very first edge of honest self-examination. You have spent years believing the best investors win more than they lose. Then you meet someone who proves that wrong completely. Eleanor Voss sits across a worn oak table, her $14 million net worth invisible, except for the absolute stillness she carries like a second skin. Marcus reaches for her trading journal, expecting a record of victories. But every page he turns is dense with losses, annotated in steady, unhurried ink. The losses aren't hidden or minimized. Each one is dated, sized, and followed by a single calm question. What did this cost me to learn? Marcus feels the ground shift beneath his assumptions. He has been treating losses as evidence of failure when they are actually the price of information. Eleanor tells him she has never once met a wealthy investor who feared losing more than they respected its necessity. Fear is the real tax on returns. Her red-filled journal isn't a record of incompetence. It is a map of every price she paid to build an unshakable, rational investing mind. Marcus closes the journal and understands for the first time that the edge he has been searching for lies not in the market, but in himself. You have probably asked, will this work? But Eleanor taught Marcus the question that actually separates survivors from casualties in any market. Eleanor set her worn journal between them and said, every position I have ever taken began not with a price target, but with a pain limit. Predefining your pain threshold is not pessimism. It is the structural load-bearing wall without which every strategy eventually collapses under pressure. Eleanor explained that most investors set stop losses after entering a trade. But by then, emotion has already corrupted the number beyond usefulness. She drew a simple line on a napkin. Below this, you cannot think. So draw the line before your thinking goes offline. Marcus realized he had been setting mental stop losses the way a drowning man sets swimming goals, after the water was already over his head. The real insight is this. Your pre-loss decision is made by your best self. Your in-loss decision is made by a frightened stranger wearing your face. Marcus left Eleanor's table not with a hot stock tip, but with a single discipline. Define the loss you can live with before the market ever opens. You think understanding a lesson in your head is the same as owning it in your bones? Marcus made that exact costly mistake. Marcus buried himself in spreadsheets, analyst reports, and probability models, building a fortress of research that felt like certainty, but was actually fear-wearing armor. Perfectionism is not discipline. It is the mind's most sophisticated strategy for avoiding the one feeling it cannot tolerate, being wrong. While Marcus waited for perfect conditions, smaller investors with modest research but strong loss tolerance stepped in, and the market rewarded their emotional courage generously. Every week of inaction felt safe in the moment, but safety that costs you participation is not safety at all. It is a slow and invisible loss. The painful irony arrived quietly. His obsessive preparation had not eliminated risk. It had simply transferred all the risk into a single catastrophic category called never entering. Marcus finally saw his pattern. He had intellectually accepted Eleanor's lesson about predefining pain, but emotionally he was still negotiating with the possibility of ever feeling it. The real lesson of the year was not about research quality. It was that knowledge without emotional integration is simply an expensive way to stand still. You think you are prepared until the market decides to show you exactly how thin that preparation really was. 6 weeks, 34% gone. The number on the screen felt less like a statistic and more like a verdict on every careful decision Marcus had made. Every over-researched trade he had avoided now mocked him in reverse. The losses came anyway, uninvited, from positions he thought were armored. In the wreckage of that 6th week, Marcus found Eleanor's old journal tucked inside a folder he had not opened since the day she gave it to him. One line stopped him cold. A loss only destroys you if you didn't budget for it emotionally before it arrived. 7 words that rewired everything. He finally understood. Eleanor had never been trying to avoid losses. She had been engineering her own emotional immune system against them, trade by trade. The crash had not failed Marcus. It had finally delivered the lesson that a year of over-preparation had been too fearful to let through the door. Standing in that broken portfolio, Marcus stopped trying to outsmart the market and began, for the first time, to honestly negotiate with himself. You know the difference between a bet and a decision? A decision comes with a pre-written acceptance of exactly what losing looks like. Marcus chose a battered sector the market had punished for 18 months, not despite the bruises, but precisely, deliberately, because of them. He sized the position so that the worst imaginable outcome would sting, but would not break him, and that boundary was the entire strategy. The first dip came fast, 12% in 9 days, and Marcus felt the fear rise exactly as predicted, which meant his plan was working. Eleanor's voice lived in the journal note now. A loss budgeted emotionally before it arrives is a loss that cannot own you. The second and third dips tested something deeper than conviction. They tested whether Marcus had truly internalized Eleanor's edge or only borrowed it. 26 months after entry, Marcus closed the position, not in triumph, but in the quiet recognition that patience had been the actual instrument. Marcus Reed won his greatest trade not by predicting the market, but by finally, completely, understanding the only market that had always mattered, himself.